to start the recording session. So we are live recording as well, and we'll be able to send this or upload it to Google Drive for editing later on. That might be a decent tutorial as well.
Nice.
How would you go about editing a video? Okay. I mean, pretty much whenever we want to go. You think we're ready?
I'm waiting for it to pop up so I can.
Let's see.
As soon as it pop up, I am ready. But yeah, we can start it. We get everything loaded.
Yep. We do a little bit of an intro so we can get this for YouTube as well. So it'll be like, what's going on, guys? I'm Anthony.
And I'm Darvis. Let's get it.
And we're with Reflection Gaming and
VG Darvis, aka Viva Gaming.
And we're going to start this nice little tutorial series on Unity game development. We have a nice kind of simple game that we're going to design together. Do you have any experience in?
None.
None?
I mean, I got basic stuff, right? You mean, of course, it was introduced in like, what, 9th grade, 10th grade? But
of
like,
course.
Nothing really took from there. I didn't have a computer to practice on my own. Never took it in college. So I was like, yeah, let's skip this part of life.
For sure. So we're going to have Darvis here kind of providing some questions. He's going to be learning it as he goes. I teach this on a day-to-day basis. I'm a computer science teacher at a local high school, so this will kind of be fun to not only get his questions live, and obviously we're streaming this live on Twitch at the same time, so we're going to get some questions from the viewers as well. And we're going to get this started with a nice little 3D game called ZigZag.
Nice.
And I know I've already kind of showed you how it looks. We could go ahead and open up the other one. I speed ran this last week, and we can kind of show what the end result is going to be. And we're going to go ahead and do a little brief tutorial today on getting it started, maybe about 20-25 minutes.
Beautiful.
And we can kind of break this up into some great parts here. So let's go ahead. I'm not going to show how to download Unity. There's plenty of stuff out there for that. What I do recommend is downloading Unity Hub. And we're going to show a little bit of Unity Hub and how to navigate through Unity Hub. And if you're doing a nice editor with this, Visual Studio Community, the 2019 edition, I think is what we're running. Any of those are going to be good. What that allows you to do is have some autocomplete features when you're programming. What's up, Stormtrooper?
Stormtrooper, how's it going?
How do I code a game like Diablo 4 in Unity?
Yeah,
that's actually a great question. I have in the past done a top-down game like that. I followed a tutorial that I found on a system called Udemy, which is very, very cool. It was more of an intermediate level tutorial because I've already had like the basic knowledge of the stuff. But yeah, I've done a Diablo-like game with that. Obviously still very basic, but it's certainly doable. And maybe we can get to something like that. So stick with us. I don't know, are you interested in any game development? I'll let you go ahead and answer that question. So yes, Unity Hub, and Visual Studio. Visual Studio allows you to do some autocomplete features. Let's go ahead and open up Unity Hub here. Unity Hub is a software that kind of goes over the top of everything and allows you to organize not only your games that you're working on, but also the different installs of Unity that you have.
Nice. You were explaining to me yesterday, like it doesn't open up the whole program, so it wasn't take that long. We could just watch what we made.
Exactly. So this is going to be a relatively small program. It does allow you to log into your Unity account. You will have to make Unity accounts. By the way, guys, everything that we're showing is free. This is all free to download, free to get. The only real stipulation with Unity that you would have to pay for, and this would be a good problem to have, is in their release, is if you start making games and you make more than $100,000 a year on games that you make for Unity, then you got to start paying for it. I say that's a pretty good problem to have. So.
That makes sense, yeah.
So everything else is free. There are some paid packages through the Unity store. In some later tutorials, we can look at some of those things as well. But for what we're doing today, we're going to do the free stuff. So really what I'm looking for here is the projects. Right now, this is the speed ran project that we did for ZigZag. My list of Unity installs, we're going to be running the version 2022 3.2. I would suggest whatever Unity Hub tells you is the most stable version. Go ahead and go from there. As with any software, never do the 0.0. The 0.0 tends to have a lot of bugs. So if it's 2022.3.0, it's like, maybe you do like a 2022.2 and do something that's a little bit more stable. Top-down dungeon crawlers are popular right now. Would be fun to do one. Yeah, it would be kind of cool. We can definitely do that. There are some great things out there as far as models for 3D characters. I did ones where they literally had bows and arrows. We had like a fireball caster.
Are you able to do even just stickman?
Like a stick draw. You know?
Like you just have a little stickman that's shooting like this.
So any of the actual designs of character designs are not going to be done in Unity. For the most part, you can either design those in other software such as 3ds Max or Blender. But what we'll do is we'll find some free sources on the Unity store that have some built-in nice little 3D models that we can utilize.
Beautiful.
And what you can do with that is you can get a basic game going, and then maybe someone else that's a little bit more artistically inclined than myself would work on maybe the aesthetics, the way the characters look, and kind of give it a nice feel to it. I gotta kind of preface this. I am the programmer at heart. I like to get down and dirty with the code. But I do have a lot of ideas. But let's go ahead and open up. Okay, let's a few more things. Learn. The Learn tab is kind of nice. Again, there's a ton of really good tutorials with Unity, and there's just so much here you can.
Were those all created with Unity?
These are all created with Unity, but these are all tutorials. Yes. So there's usually videos that go along with it. And if you ever have questions, what's really nice is you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Your mobile runner game, what?
Exactly, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of this stuff, if you can imagine that you've seen it before, well, you probably have, right? And there's ways to easily look up, even through Google, how do I do this? How do I do this? I kind of want to have a nice single place to kind of get the basics down with this ZigZag game. And then, of course, a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you just comes from experience. And you might ask, like, well, how do you memorize that piece of code? How do you know that that's there? Again, it's just you work with it. It's like anything else, riding a bike, learning how to type quickly, playing Mortal Kombat very well. You really just kind of have to put the time in, right? And what's nice is it's stuff that you can definitely look up later on. But let's go ahead and show the test project here. This will take a little bit of time to boot. When you already have a project made, it doesn't take nearly as much time as creating a new project. So I do want to take a little bit of time here to get some either more questions from the audience or more from Darvis while this boots up.
So I want to know, for example, Temple Run.
Yes.
Would you say that was made on Unity?
It might have been. It definitely could have been.
What about Angry Bird?
That one definitely could have been as well. So this is really good for 3D and 2D games. The ones that come to mind, the most famous one that I can think of right now for its Unity is Among Us.
What?
Among Us is a Unity game.
Wow, the aesthetics of that is good.
Yeah. So that's your that is a 2D game at heart. It's not a 3D game. And the way they kind of show the 3 dimensions with it is just the way they draw the sprites. So they draw the background first, and then maybe if you're trying to hide behind a bookshelf, they have to draw you, then the bookshelf. So it's
that's so good. Okay, I got you.
But I'd say that's easily something we can kind of replicate.
I love the Temple Run guns. I think that should be our first project. After we get the first project done, we should make like a Temple Run game.
Runner, that'd be cool.
Called Reflection Runner.
So I'm going to go through how to do what I'm doing and kind of just moving the mouse around once we get our own project going, but I did want to show what our end goal is. Okay, I'm going to hit the play button here. You're going to see a high score. Darvis did this yesterday on his first run of this.
I'll take it.
So basically we're going to have a start screen here that's going to have a nice little flash and click to play. That's an animation that we're going to learn how to do. The high score, the fact that it saved the high score, we're going to learn how to save data.
Nice.
We're going to learn the score up in the top left, how to trigger an event that's going to update our scores. We're going to do some movements. This is a nice little trigger event too. When I click the button to play, we're going to be able to start the game, and then after I click the button again, it's going to change the direction. So we're going to go ahead and see that the map is going to auto-generate. Whenever I click a diamond, I can miss a diamond. There's enough room on the platform to stay on, but also miss the diamond.
Also, the way the platforms are falling, are they just falling into space, to the ground? Are they endlessly falling?
So that's a great question. We're going to learn how to keep track of the lifetime of objects. I'm going to go ahead and die right there. You can see on the left this little hierarchy. That is our the objects on our screen. And we don't want the platforms. The platforms falling is a nice little feature. It's a good aesthetic, but we don't want them falling all the time, and we don't want them falling in perpetuity, right? So we will create a lifetime of these objects. When we trigger them to fall, all we're going to do is turn gravity on, and then we'll say after 5 seconds, go ahead and destroy yourself, so we're not taking up needlessly memory on our system. Same thing with the diamonds. You can see there's no more diamonds on the screen, even the ones that were in front. The diamonds have a 20-second lifetime as well because we need them to.
So does objects not being seen on screen affect the memory?
They don't necessarily have to be rendered, but they do have to be tracked. So if they're not on screen, there is some bit of memory that's going to have to keep track of their data. But the memory is not going to have to be used to actually draw it onto the screen.
When you say render, that's rendering the drawing on the screen for us to see what's going on.
Exactly. The way games work is you have typically this is going to be run at 60 frames. You guys might have a little bit more frames per second, but typically with Unity design we're going to do 60. 60 drawings are going to occur on the screen every second. So the positions, the way the camera is, the way the objects are rotated, all that needs to be calculated into this final image that needs to be put on the screen, and that needs to be done 60 times.
Good.
So yes, the position, the scale, and all this stuff you see over here on the inspector, all that stuff will be tracked, but it won't necessarily have to be placed, which is kind of nice. But we do want to make sure, because we don't want to have to 137 score and have 5,000 platforms that are falling. We don't need
Is it going to slow down the thing?
It's going to slow it down.
I got it.
We're going to have a play again button that's going to reset the game.
What's good, everybody? Welcome.
Ooh, we got some A viewers here. Very nice. You can see that the high score stays. We can find out how to reset the high score later on. That could be another button that we can have on here to reset the high score.
Okay.
We're going to learn some organization. We have some nice little folder organization here. And it's going to be kind of a cool thing to get going here. So are we ready to dive in? I think so.
Let's do it, folks.
All right, so we know what we're aiming for.
Creating our first Among Us.
On play. Yes, we're going to save. And we're going to go ahead and create a new project. So to real quick, create a new project. Again, we're doing this from Unity Hub. We're going to new project. And there's going to be a ton of templates that are already kind of available to you. You have some basic ones, 2D and 3D core. If you're just learning how to do things, these are where you want to live, right? If I'm going to make a 2D game, I'm here. If I'm going to make a 3D game, I'm here. But there's some other ones down here, these URPs.
We're going to make one directly from mobile?
Yep. It's specially modified for mobile. So what I'll have to download that from the cloud, but they have all the tools in there specifically for a mobile game. VR, AR, and all this stuff. Cinematics.
Bro, if we do a VR...
These other ones, these URPs and these HDRPs.
Have you tried a VR game? Oh my god, this company
I've not
crazy.
tried to make a VR game. That would be insane.
Dang, you would be a god if you could do that.
That would be insane. But these URPs and stuff, these are render pipelines. These specialize in making things look a lot better than your core. So there's just a lot more libraries and stuff that are available to you for like how the gravel looks on the ground kind of thing. And it makes it look a lot better. So
I see, that makes sense.
So these things are a lot more high end. I think when I did the Diablo-like Stormtrooper, when I did the Diablo-like, I think we did the 3D URP, and they did a really good job of walking us through what that actually means. Again, we can do that in another tutorial once we get to our more advanced systems. That'd be cool. But for now, we're going to do our 3D.
Let's go.
Right here in the project name, and it's going to be really simple. We're going to call it just ZigZag. Okay. You can choose your save location. Project name can be pretty much anything you want. And we're going to go ahead and create our project. And again, this is going to take a little bit of time. Creating a brand new project, it does have to download a lot of stuff from the Unity clouds. It does have to get a lot of stuff from the libraries that are in the actual Unity 2022 installer. So there is quite a bit. Unity is a pretty hefty little beast, but it does a lot for you, which is kind of nice. And you kind of learn how to make sure, especially when you teach this stuff. And now I'm going back to 5 days a week. We had a block schedule at the high school I worked at, and so I had the kids like 80, 90 minutes a day. So we could take 5 minutes to open up a Unity and we'd be fine. But I can't do that now in a 58-minute class. It takes up too much time. So we got to try to find, that's one thing you got to do with teaching, right, is you got to kind of find something else to do in the meantime. So again, any questions you might have, any questions Darvis might have, let's keep up the discussion. What else would you guys like to see for the 8 viewers we got in here right now? After our ZigZag tutorial, what would you like to make? We have a runner, we have a Diablo-like. These are all very possible.
Temple Runs, Diablos, Angry Birds. Okay, question. You know how, for example, they got those little iPhone games where they're face interactive, so you'll blink, it'll bounce and stuff like that.
Goodness.
What are they considered? Is that AR, augmented reality?
So augmented reality is when it's more like your Pokemon Go.
Like Flapjack, there you go, where it was like...
Yeah, so when you're looking at it on your screen, you can see, like, the camera's working, so you can see the room or the field in front of you as is, but then, you know, Pikachu's out in the field. So that's AR. So you can see Pikachu out in the field, but you also see it through the camera. The virtual reality is everything is virtual, and you're doing it. Oh, that was actually pretty quick. Right. That was actually pretty quick. So we are ready to roll here. Gonna do a little bit of introduction into the inspector, into the software here. When you first start a game project, you're going to have this default window. This is typically where I like to live, the default window. It's very nice because you kind of learn and get used to where everything is. Okay. The main windows I like to kind of show, again, are here. We have a hierarchy. You can see hierarchy. It might be a little difficult to see on stream, but it says hierarchy right there, and that lists all the objects that are currently on the scene. Okay, so we can work with multiple scenes. This particular game, we're only going to have one scene.
Okay.
But you can imagine a more complex game where you're going to have multiple scenes, right? You got to turn up the mic if you can. We can certainly try. Yeti Nano. Is that a little bit better? Oh, we got a resub. Yeah, we don't have the stuff on. We have it between the two of us. So
hey, welcome. Thank you for the resub, Tubbsy.
Tubbsy with the resub, the 6 months. Very, very nice. So again, you can have, this one's called sample scene. Okay. That's always going to be the default scene that you see. You can create more scenes. You can kind of go in between scenes. We will do that maybe in some top-down 2Ds, and that would be kind of cool.
That'd be awesome.
So right now...
quick question. Yes. And for top-down 2Ds, how does camera trace it? Like, do you put a camera to trace the person?
So that's a great question. So, and the answer is always going to be it depends. By default, the camera does not move.
Oh,
so you have to tell the camera how to move.
Okay.
So there is a
point of interest type of thing?
Oh my goodness. So there is you used to have to code this. And I always actually make my kids, and we'll do a camera follow script with this, because I just think it makes a little bit more sense the way we do it here. But for 2D, I actually make my kids code a camera follow. But a Cinemachine is a library that somebody created, literally, and you can do this if you're good enough. Somebody created a library that was so good and so useful, Unity said, you know what, we're going to make that a default package. And so Unity said, some random person that doesn't even work with Unity said, I'm going to make this. Can you get a oh yeah? You can. Oh yeah!
Oh yeah!
So I didn't turn on Lumia Stream for that reason, actually. So yeah, the short answer is by default, it doesn't move, and you have to tell it how to move. The longer answer is yes, there's something called Cinemachine, and Cinemachine is actually incredible. And by the time we get to something like that, because you can actually handle multiple cameras at once, you can actually make a camera go on like a rail system, and you can basically tell it, I want you to focus on this enemy, and actually did this with my Diablo. It was basically a camera, like we paused the game, I had the camera show like the layout of the enemies in a quick little cutscene. And one of them was like a camera on a rail that literally had a path it followed. But I told it to focus on this enemy as it was walking. So as it moved, it just stayed focused on that enemy.
That's so cool.
And yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. But again, that's all that intermediate. It's all possible, and I've definitely done it. So we're going to have a simple camera follow like we saw earlier. But right now, the main camera itself literally just is very basic. You can see once I click on the main camera object itself in the inspector, we're going to look at the properties that this camera has. The most common one we're going to use is this transform. Transform, everything's going to have a transform. Transform keeps track of 3 pieces of information: the position in the world, its rotation, and then the scale of the object. And we're going to look at the rotation and the scale once we start getting some actual other objects like cubes and spheres on the system. But right now, by default, 0, 1, and -10. Sorry guys, there is a tiny bit of math in this, mostly vector math. We're going to try to make this as simple as possible, but we have an X position, a Y position, and a Z position.
Yep.
You can tell from the stuff here,
Okay.
X is this red vector, and this is the positive X direction. So if I were to grab this arrow here and move it, you will see that the X position actually goes positive when I move it in that direction. And then if I move it back, the X will be negative.
Good. So anything, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So I'm going to reset that back to 0. The green one here, up, is the positive Y. Y is always going to be up.
Nice.
So we can go up and down, and you can see the Y move. And then Z is going to be the blue one. Z is typically your forward direction.
Nice.
So
3D
forward
angle,
and then
babies.
backwards. So in the 3D realm, of course in the 2D realm, we're not going to use Z that much. But in the 3D realm, X is going to be your left and right. Y is going to be your up and down, and Z is going to be your forward and backward.
Nice.
Okay. Rotation, a little bit harder to explain. We're not going to get into too much detail about how this will look, but when I kind of click, so this, by the way, is the move tool. That's how I was able to do all that. I can click on the rotate tool here, and I can go ahead and rotate based on this. Red, again, is X, so you can see an X rotation, and you can actually see the main camera there in the bottom right do some movement.
Are you holding left click, right click, or
left
anything?
click? Left click.
Okay.
Yep. And again, Y is going to be this green one.
Good, good.
And then Z is going to be the blue one.
Very cool.
So you have 3 different axes in which you can rotate. That's literally, I think, the harder one to kind of grasp what X, Y, and Z mean. There's something called the right-hand rule. I don't know if any of you guys have taken that math, but like with rotations, when it comes to physics, that's what they base their stuff on.
I see. That's cool. That's cool.
And then the scale here is literally what you would think of, and this makes more sense once we get to physical objects on the screen, is how big is the object in each of these directions. So that one's a little bit simpler. By the way, guys, this was made by people, I believe, in either Australia or New Zealand. I want to say it's New Zealand. So everything is based in meters. So these numbers are supposed to be meant to be meters, if you would like to think that. So once we start doing a Diablo game, a person might be 2 units tall, because maybe it's close to 6 feet for us here in America that use feet still. But yeah, so you get your camera, and we'll mess with the transform a little bit. The directional light we really won't mess with, but this is literally just a light, and that helps with shadows and stuff like that. You can even change the colors. We won't mess with this too much, but this might be something you may mess with in some more 3D games like your Diablo styles. But it is kind of nice just to have a shadow casting thing. But yeah, that's what we get for the start. So we talked about our inspector. We talked about the hierarchy. I do want to talk about the projects down here.
The projects are stuff that we created, downloaded, and things to insert,
Exactly.
or
Oop, we just disconnected.
oh yeah, that was the random thing that happened.
No. So we might have to wait till it comes back.
But I'm glad you did recording though.
Yeah,
actually.
that was have to worry about the VOD.
Yep.
So it should come back.
No.
Yeah. Reconnection successful.
Yep.
Sorry guys, if we get disconnected, we'll take a brief pause and hopefully get people back in.
Yeah, so I asked him just on the bottom part for projects, are they just going to be the ones he made, packages, what is it?
So yes, it's going to be the stuff we made, and if we download any packages, they'll also appear here as well. The root folder is called the assets folder, and by default we're going to have a scenes folder underneath that. So
Gotcha.
If you guys are computer savvy, these are literally folders that as they would exist inside your folder explorer for you Windows users, and then I don't know what it's called on Mac.
OBS too?
I don't know what it's called on Mac and all those, but yeah, these are literally just folders. And one of the things I like to preach with my kids is folder organization. So we want to make sure that things stay relatively organized, so we kind of know, because when things get bigger, you want to know where things are.
Good.
So right now there's a scenes folder, and you can see our sample scene has already been created, and it's there, ready for us. And actually, all a scene is a text file that basically lists the hierarchy and the inspector information. And that's
and you just kind of fill it in.
Yep, so what we do here, I'm going to go to Spectrum and let's see you do it, dude.
Lag up there.
Was that Spectrum? Because I thought it might have just been OBS. I didn't see Call of Duty freeze up there, so either way, I know OBS has been kind of picky. We'll call it picky. But let's get some objects on the screen. So we're going to end the day. It was us too? Gotcha. So we're going to get some objects on the screen. We're going to end the day with being able to move our sphere.
Good. Okay. And we're aiming in a 2D or 3D?
We are doing a 3D system right now. So
let's go.
We talked about the project folder, console. Once we start actually getting some programming going, this is going to be our nice little debug area. So we're going to get to console later on so I can show you how that works, but that is definitely valuable. And then I'd say the last thing is going to be this stuff right here, the different tools. This is your view tool. If I click and drag, I can kind of move my camera just to kind of help me get some view. Again, we talked about the move tool with the main camera. That's these arrows, the rotate tool. There's a scale tool, and we're going to actually use that for the platform that we're going to make right now.
Good.
And then these other ones, this one I use more for the HUD. So once we get to like the text on the screen, we'll talk about this one, which is called the rect tool. I really don't use transform tools, so I'm not going to go into it because I don't find it useful. These are all hotkeyed. So you'll see me sometimes going Q, W, E, R. I think those are the main four I use. But Q is going to be the move tool, and then it just goes down. W, E, R.
Nice.
So.
Very good.
If you see me really quickly transform.
I'm like, wait, how did he do that? Yeah. Like,
what? Another useful one is the right click. It allows you to rotate. If I hold right click. Also, a different kind of rotate is the Alt key. It's a different kind of rotate. You can rotate the camera and work with that.
Good. Very good.
All right.
We're on board, y'all. We're on board.
Let's get a object on the screen here. Let's go ahead and we're going to do that from the game object. There's a few different ways to actually get an object on the screen. We're going to look at both of them that I like to use. One is the game object.
Okay.
So click on game object. This is a 3D object, and we're going to put a cube on the screen. Okay. So it kind of just puts it in the center of the screen based on your current view. So to us, that looks pretty random as far as the transform is concerned. But, it's not that random. It's literally in the middle of the screen as our current view, right? You're going to see we're going to be able to name this right away. It's very good to start naming your objects so you know what they are. By default, it's just
testing cube 1.
Yeah, and if I make another cube, it'll be cube 1, then cube 2, then cube 3. And that's not a very good naming scheme. So this is going to be our starting platform. There we go, our starting platform. And you can see it's been changed up here in the name as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to center that in the middle of the world.
Yep, 0, 0, 0. Okay.
That's where we're going to start it. I do want to show you the scale tool because it makes more sense with the cube now that we have it. So there's our scale tool. And you can see the red, the yellow, and the blue. And I can go ahead and hold this, and you can see it stretch in the X direction. And you can see the scale change right there. Yeah. And then I can do the same thing with the blue.
Forward. Back it up, back it up, back it up.
We're going to eventually make this a 10 by 10. But I do want to show real quick, you could even scale everything at once. There is a little white cube in the middle. And if you do that, then you can scale the entire thing at once. And everything is going to match.
Good.
Which is kind of nice.
Very good.
For this particular scale, we're going to make this a 10 by 1 by 10. It's going to be 1 in height, and that is our starting platform.
1 by 10 makes sense. Yep.
So we are right in the middle of the world. We can go ahead and, I'm going to hit the Q to kind of center this in my thing. I'm going to hold the Alt and kind of just get there. But also I'm realizing that the positive X and Z axes are facing towards us, right?
Good.
So I'm actually going to rotate behind it. Okay, so now they're facing away from us.
Good.
Cool. Eventually we're going to move the camera to this location, but I kind of just want to get a good view of what we're looking at. That is a good starting platform. But it's a little bland. It's a little bland. We need to put some color on this thing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add color to this platform.
We're going to go with like a real texture?
Yeah, it's going to not so much be a texture as it will be a color. Textures
Fair.
are going to have some patterns and things like that. My first experience with textures was in 3ds Max in high school, and we made a lava ball. So it had like some like nice little textures on it. So this will be a simple color. Create. By the way, I came down here into the assets. I'm going to right click, create. I'm going to create a folder.
Nice.
Because we're going to worry about our organizations, and this will be materials.
Good.
So the materials are going to be, they could be textures, but typically textures are going to be in a different folder because there's going to be more of those in your standard materials.
Fair.
These materials are going to be just a color that we're going to choose. So once I'm inside my materials folder, I can right click, create a material. And again, there's a lot of stuff here.
Shader, testing, scene, audio, so much.
There's a lot, and actually,
animation.
You can programmatically make more things here, and I've done it. So that's a very much an advanced tutorial. But we're going to go ahead and make a material, okay? And this will be our starting platform material. And I don't know if we can get a vote going in the chat. What color should this starting platform be?
Yeah, what do you guys think? Are we gonna do the floors not lava? Are we running in some woodlands, straight up black, a little marble-ish? What we got?
We can have anything from like a green. So you can see the kind of material change right here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I mean, we can have like an orange, hot pink. Oof.
Ooh.
Hot pink.
Let's see.
I might like
that lava pink. That lava pink.
More of like. It's more of a.
That's too purple. Let's go more right.
So maybe right there. So that, if we can't tell based on what we're seeing here, what we can do, I'm going to go ahead and leave that. I'm going to click and drag this material onto the starting platform, and you can see it change.
Beautiful.
Okay. So now what's kind of neat is I can come back down here to material, and if I start changing the material, watch the platform.
What a platform change? Yup.
There you go. So do we like that pink?
As hot as you could get. We want to burn it pink.
We can add some additional features to this. There's two that I like to use, and it's usually the metallic. You can raise the metallic here, and you can kind of make it, you can see it kind of got darker.
Yeah, more of a floor.
Yeah, but it's going to reflect light in a different way. So you can kind of see as I rotate around it, the light is reflecting in a different way. And also the smoothness kind of helps with that as well. So these are all things you can mess with. If it's, I guess, more...
What is a normal map, height map, and occlusion map? What does all those mean?
That is a great question. I do not have much experience in any of those.
Good.
I know the tiling is going to be for when you do textures, typically they repeat.
So it may be like small, like...
Yeah. So it'll be the size of the individual tile, say of like your lava texture. The texture itself is going to be a square, probably, of different designs on it, but that's going to have to repeat in a way.
I got you.
So that's what tiling is. You can offset it as well, and so like with the emissions and stuff like that. But again, I'll
grab my jacket.
Go for it. But maybe that's too much smoothness. Again, smoothness is going to affect how the light reflects. Let's let the hot pink kind of flow. I like it. What do we think?
I think it's nice.
You think it's nice?
I feel like whatever we make is going to be sliding around. We got to get some control.
I call it starting material. That's probably not the best name for it. I'm actually just going to... All of our platforms are going to be this color. So I'm actually not even going to call it starting platform.
The platform color.
I'm going to call it the platform color.
Oh, nice.
So there we go. And that's going to be useful for all of our stuff.
Very good.
All right. We're at a good spot. Let's go ahead and create a sphere, our ball. This is going to be our player. I showed you guys how to create a object from the game object menu. We can actually just come in here into the hierarchy and right click, and we can create an object this way.
Okay.
And typically what I like to do with this is when you can have like parent-child hierarchies where an object could be a sub-object of something else. This is nice because I can specifically say, hey, you create a child object.
Got you.
But that's fine. I can click just in the middle of the blank space there. And I'm going to go ahead and go 3D object sphere. We can call this ball. We can call it player. What do you think?
Let's go with player one.
Player one?
Yeah, player one. OG player one.
Perfect. Again, it's in the middle of the screen. It's in an awkward space. I'm going to go ahead and go 0, 0 for the X and Z, so it's directly above the center of our platform.
Good.
And then let's go ahead and... Ooh, I didn't get... We're going to slowly lower to where it makes sense.
Now, if you were to put 0, why you didn't put 0? Would it because it would be inside the platform?
If I put a 0... Yes, it'll be inside the platform.
Understood.
And you can see a little bit of the green poking out, so it's a little bit of its box collider poking out. So we don't necessarily want that. We're going to go ahead and kind of have it just above, and it's usually a 1 or just above a 1, depending on what you want
Nice,
to do.
okay.
And I know I showed you this earlier, but let's go ahead and raise it, and let's go ahead and see by default what happens. So we're going to go ahead and play, and it's just a cube and a ball. This is the standard camera position. Just because you change the camera position when you're working on things doesn't mean it's going to change it in game, because you wouldn't necessarily want that.
Yes, and it's still technically playing, guys. It just has no gravity or motion or anything. Yep. So it's playing right now. That's what it's
showing
done.
us at 60 frames.
Yep, right now.
0 movement.
Literally.
But that's great. You pointed out gravity, and actually that's one of the things that we're going to add. We're going to say, hey, player 1, I want you to interact with gravity a little bit. And we do that by adding a component. You can see some other components, 120 frames beta, of 0 movement, I guess.
They really call it gravity. That's so good.
You can see the mesh filter and the mesh renderer. This is just kind of shows how it actually is rendered onto the screen. And actually, once we create our ball color, that's what is going to populate with the ball color material, is right there. So if we went to the starting platform and we went to its materials, you can see it has the platform material.
Okay.
So eventually we'll make our ball color. But for now, let's go ahead and make sure that it can move. I'm going to add a component down here. And this is going to be a rigid body. So rigid body allows the object to actually interact with physics. Okay.
Now, if you had no idea it was rigid body, how would I have found that?
So that would be something as simple as Unity. How do I add gravity to my object?
Good, very good.
And then if
you guys hear
look
that
up, it should be one of the first things, adding a rigid body. Very simple. In older game development things, you would actually have to code the gravity and stuff in it. But there's so many things that are such basic movements, they said, no, we're going to create something along with this.
That's good, okay.
So there we go, rigid body. We have some properties here that we can kind of manipulate. The one I wanted to show by default is the use gravity is checked. Okay, so if the use gravity is checked, I can go ahead and hit play, and we will get to see the ball fall. Boom. The ball falls. Again, I can go ahead and come back here and uncheck it, and if I hit play again, the ball doesn't fall.
Nice. No gravity has been applied.
Very simple to actually get this going, but we do want gravity applied. It has a mass. You can make things heavier. This just allows us to kind of get some interactions. Let's say you were playing a game like Pong or Disconnect. All right, hold on. We'll be back.
Mass is like how, like if you're playing Pong, it would be like, if the mass is too heavy, it won't go as velocity or fast or.
Yes, the bounce probably won't be as good, but we'll wait till they come back.
Okay.
Boo.
So
Call of Duty's still going out there.
But it is video. He could just, yeah. It could be pre-rendered some of the videos. Preloaded, there we go. That is bogus, though.
I don't know if this is an OBS issue.
Let me see.
There we go. Reconnection successful.
Oh, yeah, we went offline. Okay, we should load up.
This is why we get all the notifications. So we are back. Sorry again, guys. Before we got internet again, I saw the Call of Duty didn't go out. Did you get DC'd from the game you're up there using right now? But while you're answering that, you came up with a good question about the mass before we got kicked out. You asked about, we were talking about Pong. So what that would actually do is if you're playing a game like Pong or Brick Breaker, and there's like some bounce, we have a customer that doesn't seem like, yeah, okay, that's good. When it comes to the bounce, this will be how objects interact and how they would actually collide and maybe bounce off of each other.
Good.
So if you have a more massive ball that runs into a smaller massed spaceship, the ball hitting the spaceship would actually kind of keep going, maybe.
Oh, nice.
Instead of actually just bouncing off the ship.
That's
And
so
stuff
good.
you would actually do with the mass as well. Angular drags, these are to simulate real life conditions like friction.
Okay.
And then kinematic is
Energy, right?
Yes, but in this context, it makes it basically not able to move. So in order to actually get some good interactions when it comes to some objects hitting it, you do need a rigid body. Okay. But sometimes you want a rigid body and you don't want it to necessarily move.
That makes sense. That makes sense,
so
actually.
you do want to have it kinematic. Some other things I like to do are constraints, and these are pretty cool, especially in 2D, is freezing rotations. And what this could actually mean is, like, say you're having a 2D game and you have your little 2D sprite jumping around the screen, and he goes to jump, and for some reason, like, the sprite just kind of rotates forward and your face plants.
Yeah.
You don't want that in your sprite, right? So you can actually freeze the rotation so he doesn't actually rotate.
That's so good. Okay, good.
Or again, like,
woo!
Or again, like Pong, right? You for the most part, that's a left and right movement, or sorry,
2D only,
up and
X
down
and Y only.
Yeah, it's an up and down movement. So what you'll see in the 2D realm is you'll see the X and Y positions with the checkbox. But for Pong, what you'll do is you'll freeze the X position because you don't want your Pong paddle to move in the X direction. You only want it to move in the Y direction.
This is good.
So that's what
Yep.
those are useful for. We're not going to do anything like that right now.
That's very good. This is good.
Because of the fact that we do want gravity to eventually work, especially when we do our game over, like we fall off the platform, we're going to make sure that gravity
Now, once
works.
we finish this game, are we able to also add like little things like boosters on it? Little jumps,
little like
pads,
power-ups, maybe
power-ups.
make the game a little bit
Yeah.
harder as you go. Like with a Temple Run, for example,
Yeah.
the game gets harder as you progress, right?
Speed, velocity, everything.
Exactly,
Everything.
Exactly. That's all stuff. So we're going to work on our version 1 of it and get something working, and then we can say, okay, now what can we add?
Oh, every week we can add some new stuff?
And yeah, you can
I'm
add some new
so down.
stuff. But let's get some basic movement. Let's get a color real quick.
All right, every time we do it and we add the kids to try it and test it, there'll be a test. And then we come next
to
week.
get some player
Yo, get some player test. All right, bet. Yo, get some player test.
Let's go ahead and real quick create a material for the ball. We need a ball color, guys. What are we thinking?
All right, so we're on a nice little hot pink. Let's go with a nice. Let's go with it's like a silver grayish.
Silver gray. So again, I named a player. I went ahead and clicked and dragged it onto my player object. You can see it's right there. I'm going to click back on the player material, and we're going to go ahead and see. We said a silver grayish. So let's go ahead.
Nice.
Do we like that? And do
Very
we want
nice.
to be a little bit more shiny?
Yeah.
So look how, like, you can almost see like a reflection in you can see like the horizon of the map.
Literally.
Right? So that's what the smoothness helps you do. The smoothness is like how smooth is the mirror kind of thing. So
Gotta get that ball head shining.
yeah, so that's pretty cool. We
Get
have like
that ball head.
almost looks like a nickel ball. Actually, nickel's not that reflective.
That's
but
almost
a
my
smooth
forehead.
nickel ball.
That's like my forehead.
All right, so like let's go ahead and press play again.
Bam.
Okay, look at that. That looks nice.
Now, guys, why didn't it bounce?
That's a good question. Why didn't
Is it
it
too
bounce?
heavy? Is that the mask? Why?
So that's a great question. The reason why it didn't bounce is we didn't tell it to bounce. So by default, things will not bounce when they collide. We have something called a physics material. And again, you can kind of right-click into here, create. And I believe it's right here, a physics material that you can apply to any object. And part of the properties there is the level of bounciness of an object. In our game, we're not going to need bounciness. So we're not going to end up adding the physics material, but this would be useful for a game like Brick Breaker and Pong. And
Makes sense. That makes
stuff like
sense.
that. So what you can do is you can apply a level of bouncy. It's a number between 0 and 1. 0 is not bouncy at all, and 1 is perfectly bouncy. So if you have a certain height and you let
Keep
gravity go, it'll bounce and come back up
Yo,
to that
this
same
is
exact
just
height.
like physics when I was doing all
Exactly.
physics. It's so good. I love it.
Exactly. So, but yes, you can add bounciness to a object. It's kind of nice. But we're gonna get it to move, and we're gonna kind of introduce some coding here, guys. Are we ready for some programming?
Let's do it.
All right. Again, we're going to talk about organization. I'm going to make a scripts folder inside of my assets folder. Scripts. Okay. It's an empty folder. We call it scripts. I like to maintain a good naming convention as well. Notice I have capital letters to start my folders. And this is actually going to be incredibly important for our scripts. Okay. C# is the language we're going to be coding in, and it tends to be very picky. Okay, so if you guys are creating Unity games or even any kind of C# projects, including .NET, which is more of like web design,
I see.
we want to make sure we always start our file names with capital letters, and we do not include spaces in our names. Okay. So having said that, those are the two rules we're going to have for our names. We're going to go ahead and right-click here and create a C# script. And before I touch anything, because right now you see has a default with new behavior. Okay, it's spelled with a U because again, it's like New Zealand, Australia, so it's behavior with a U.
Have you?
We want to give it the name here. Okay, and this will be our player script. Lucky for us, it's just a one-word name.
So we don't need script, it's just player.
Yeah, just player. If we later on, we're going to make like a game manager script, and we're going to look to see how that goes. But again, we don't want spaces in our names.
Yeah.
So right now, we're going to do player, capital P player, and that's important. It's very important for C# to have capital letter file names, and we're going to go ahead and enter after that. And when I did that, we have a preview of what the script is going to look like, and you can actually see player spelled correctly right there. Okay, so I'm going to.
And this is what you're saying. You have void start, do everything, and then void end.
Yeah. So this is by default. If I were to make a script in Unity using the right-click method we just did, it pre-populates it with some pretty useful stuff. And we're going to go ahead and open this. I double-clicked on it. It automatically knows to use Visual Studio once you have Visual Studio downloaded. I'm using actually the 2022 version. 2022 version is kind of gutted. And you'll see why once we start programming some stuff. It has some really amazing Unity level autocomplete to where looking things up may not even be something you have to do. It's pretty smart in knowing what you're trying to do. And it has very good suggestions.
And that's exactly what I need, literally.
So 2022 has been, like, for example, I might start typing a variable for my X position, and immediately it's like, do you want one for your Y position too? And you can just be, oh yeah. And you can enter, and it just does it for your Y position as well.
Very good.
All right, so let's go ahead and actually open up the file, guys, not just Visual Studio. There we go.
There we go. Let's go.
Let's zoom in a little bit.
Show it better.
All right. All right. It looks intimidating, okay? But we're going to go ahead and kind of break this down from the top, okay? These three statements, these are library import statements, okay? There's a lot of stuff that very, very smart people have already written for us that we don't need to reinvent. And this is simply saying, hey, we're going to use what they wrote.
Good.
Okay, so system collections, these are stuff that are very much specific to C#. And what you'll see is they're kind of a different color, right? They're slightly kind of grayed out to this one, right? And that's because even though we have them included, it's smart enough to know we're not actually really using them. So nothing that we have here in the body is actually using system collections and system collections generic. So it's like, do you really need, it's kind of letting you know, do you really need these? Right? Using the directive isn't necessary. Do you really need these? The answer is probably going to be no, but I'm not going to touch that for now.
Fair.
Okay? But you'll see that using Unity Engine is not grayed out, and that's because this mono behavior is a part of Unity Engine. So we are using Unity Engine. We're going to keep that there as we're going. Okay. So again, these top parts are just like, hey, what else am I going to use in this script?
Okay.
Okay. And we'll talk about what we're going to add later. We're going to add some more things like scene management later on. UI is going to be an extra package. Okay, but we don't need this for player for the moment. What you'll see is a public class player, and everything we're going to design is a class. Okay, player is going to be the same exact, and this needs to be the same exact name as the file name.
Good.
File.cs
That's good to know.
That's good to know. So we have a capital P player, capital P player. This is basically saying, hey, this already is a subtype of something, and that subtype is mono behavior. We need this in order to attach this script to any object in our game. If we do not have the mono behavior piece right here, we will not be allowed to attach it to an object in our game. So and Unity will let us know, like, I don't know what to do with this because it's not mono behavior. So this is a script that is a mono behavior type. It means we can use it in Unity, we can attach it to a script or to an object. Okay. What confuses a lot of people are the curly braces. Curly braces. These match up. Okay, and the tabs that
That's
we
not a
see
bracket?
here, bracket is going to be more of the square. So
You're right. I
something
see.
something like that, right? That's going to be your square brackets. We call these curly braces in programming, and these match up. There's an opening and a closing, and we try to get these to match with the way they are tabbed from the left side of the screen. So what you'll see here is we have an opening curly brace or a left curly brace. And if you follow this line all the way down, we're going to have a right curly brace.
And that would be that entire 6 through 18 would be packaged up. An entire 6 through 18, the entire commands would be between 7 through 17?
Yes, exactly. So, and you can kind of tell when I kind of click in front of it, notice how it highlights the curly brace?
Smart.
But it also highlights the one down here as well. So it's letting you know ahead of time, like, yes, I've detected a matching set of curly braces, and that's how they match.
Good.
And what I want you guys to picture is this is a package, if you will, like a little box, okay? And what we're saying is everything in between these curly braces is a part of this class definition. Okay? We are defining a player, and we're defining what a player does, how it behaves. How are we going to define it? In between these curly braces. Okay? So once we have that kind of initial level, we have the different kinds of behaviors. And you can think of this, the way I like to describe it with my kids is, this is like a Lego booklet. If you guys like to build Legos, this is literally the blueprints on how a player is going to behave. We're creating the blueprints right now. Okay, this is the package, and then this is going to be the individual behaviors. How does it build? How does it fly? How does it move? How does it,
good, very good.
All that stuff. Okay, mono behavior has a few built-in behaviors, for lack of a better word. Two of them that we see here are called start and update, and I like these little comments, by the way. These are comments. Every language has one. The double / lets us know that everything on that line after that is just a comment. And what comments are is they are ignored by the compiler. Compiler doesn't care about comments at all. That's for us. That's for people.
Good.
So that allows us to kind of put some English in there, some language that kind of helps us.
Good. This is awesome. Okay, good. And
so
this has nothing to do with the rendering, none of that.
Exactly.
Just talking, like notes.
Yep, these are exactly notes. Okay, we call them comments in programming, but they are notes. Start is called for the first frame update. So by the time the first frame of the game begins, whatever is inside the start, whatever commands we give player to do inside of start, they will execute.
Cool.
And it's right before the first frame. And we disconnected again.
And we disconnected. Yeah, this is sick. This is not as complicated than looking at it.
You just gotta have someone that.
Does this still translate to like website development or app development as far as script writing?
Yeah, everything. When it
Oh,
comes
this is
to
good. This is broken.
A programming language like this is gonna have functions.
So you know how on Google you just press F12, and
Yep.
that's that.
That is HTML typically.
But that's similar to script.
Kind of. There's probably some JavaScript in there. HTML is a markup language that basically tells you how the design of the page actually looks. So
it's not really telling it how to function. It's telling it how it looks. This is tight.
Exactly. So JavaScript actually tells it how to function, whereas HTML is a markup language called a markup language. It's just basically like, okay, I want you to have a header here. I want you to have an image here. I want you to have. But what actually tells the image to cycle through various images? Well, that's JavaScript. So JavaScript will tell it how to do that.
This is cool. Okay.
All right, we are back. We might have to figure this out. It might just mean an OBS reinstall. I think that might have to be something.
You guys did y'all latest update?
I don't think so. I'd have to ask Tracy what we did there. I think before we left, we talked about the behaviors here. It was out here too. Is it my stream or is it like your game though? That's my question. Because if it's just the stream, that makes sense.
Oh, I see what you just said.
But it's just something we got to deal with. We got to get it fixed. Okay, we talked about behaviors. This is for the first frame update. We also call this a function, and that is going to be the programmatic language. Actually, might have just been the stream there. I think we might have to reinstall OBS. Tubbsy, might be something we do. You just didn't get kicked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
We might have to do that after we're done here. But I want to introduce some vocabulary, some programming vocabulary. This is called a function, and it works kind of the same way. We can name the function. You can tell it's a function. I did not install an update. You can tell it's a function by the parentheses that we have there. Okay, and that basically tells us this is a function. It's a function. We are defining a function here. I'll tell you what void is later on, but for the most part, we're going to use void there. We call that a return type. Right now, we're going to use void. I think for pretty much the entire, this game is going to be void. We're not going to do anything special. And then all the commands are going to be listed inside of these curly braces. Okay, so again, an opening and a closing, and you can kind of tell that they match up. Okay, and everything we're going to do after this is going to be an additional tab. The question I always get is, does this need to be tabbed? In C#, no. C#, no, it doesn't need to be tabbed. It's literally for people because it kind of looks like more like notes, right? It has some good organization. Languages like Python, the answer is yes.
Do they got to be in a certain way though, as far as how they function? So you got to write. This should be going in front of this, as far as function.
Good question. So as far as the commands, yes.
Okay.
When we're doing commands inside of our functions, it will go in order. As far as where the functions inside the class are defined, no, which is kind of nice. Those don't need to be in any certain kind of order. So I could put update in front of start as long as there's some directions there. Because what Unity is going to do is it's going to be like, okay, I need to run the update, and it'll look for the update and it knows where to find it. But once we're inside of a function, the commands that we write in order need to be in the order we want them to be in. So the update function is called once per frame. This is going to actually tell the ball how to move. And this is where we're actually going to live right now.
Good.
So first thing I'm actually going to do is, in front of this, we don't necessarily have to have a function to start. And I'm going to create something called a variable. And this is just going to be a placeholder of some data. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to call it a float. A float is a data type. There's a few different kinds of data types. Float is short for a floating point number. I want you guys to just think of this as a decimal number.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two different kinds of numbers we can use. We can use whole integers, whole numbers, and we actually call those integers, and we'll go int for short. If we don't necessarily need whole numbers and we need some more decimal places, we're going to use float. So float is for our decimal numbers. We need to give this variable a name. Now, the name can be almost anything, naming convention aside, but there are certain words in languages that are reserved, and we call those keywords. Words like public, I can't call a variable public. I can't call a variable class. So anything that you literally kind of translates to this blue is an off-limits word. Okay, off-limits word. But what you want to do with your variables is you want to name it something that it's close to what it's going to be used for. And this is going to be our speed.
Good.
Our speed
this isn't going to affect the function at all.
No, this is Psychonius, and we're here with VG Darvis asking some great questions along the side.
How's it going, Josh?
So what's up?
That's not going to, that's just for our notes, right? That's not going to affect anything
This
in the
is
void.
not notes. This needs to be done correctly, and we can kind of see that it's auto-completing a little bit for us.
Okay.
But we are creating a variable that's going to hold a number that we can, if we want to, change over time. And we're going to give this a value. Right now it says 1f. The f just kind of lets it know that this is a floating point number, but we're going to go ahead and say this is going to be 5f. And basically you can think of that as 5 miles an hour, or 5 meters per second, whatever kind of speed we want this ball to go in. So now when we're going to actually code the movement of the ball, we can say, I want you to apply this speed with it too, instead of just moving. And I don't want to put the 5 down here, because what if I do want it to change? Well, then how do you change a hard-coded 5? You can't. You have to come into the code and physically change it. So later on, if we wanted to make the game harder and we wanted to increase the speed, we can't do that if we put a hard-coded 5 down here.
And what about in between the void start and the void end? Same thing as well?
As far as right here?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, in between functions, I don't put anything. If I'm going to create variables, I put them up at the top. That is not necessarily required, but it is a nice convention to adopt.
So it matters where you put in all this stuff?
Sometimes yes, sometimes it's just more of a convention. In this case, it's going to be a convention. I put my variables up top. And I'm going to add some other stuff later on, but for right now, I do want a nice little variable here. And you can kind of see it's grayed out because we're not necessarily using this yet.
Gotcha.
But we will be using this in update. This is where it's going to get a little, I don't want to call it hairy, but we actually did get disconnected.
There's no way. Wait, but oh no, it's them.
No,
Oh yeah, it's him.
we're coming back. Stream death. It says 7,000. Dude, it jumped up to past.
Oh, that was internet. Now that was internet.
It jumped up to like over 8,000 KBS, Tubbsy. I don't think that's any good. Right now it's at 4,300, but it jumped up to like 8,000. Something's going on with the in Tubbsy's. You guys need to stop. All right, we don't have that much more to do today. We're gonna go ahead and go into update. We're going to tell the rigid body how to move. And this is going to be kind of a nice thing. What I used to do with the kids is kind of tell it to change its position over time, but no, we're actually just going to tell it to change its velocity.
Good.
And we're going to do this by, in settings, yeah, I don't know if someone changed the settings there. Anything that we're going to adopt from Unity here, so the player has the rigid body, these are called components. Component. Some of these specialty ones, like rigid body, we have to use what's called a get component function. Okay, so we're trying to get a component from the object that we're attached to. Right? We're going to be attached to this object. What component do we want? Do we want the transform, the sphere, the mesh renderer? In this case, we want the rigid body. So we're going to put in.
Yep, because we want the body to move at a consistent velocity, right?
We're going to put in rigid body in between these angle brackets. Okay. This is technically a function, so we're going to need to put some parentheses there. Again, this is just something you're going to get used to when you do this a lot. But this get component is a function, and we're trying to get a rigid body type. And you can already see that it's trying to autocomplete some stuff for you. It kind of knows what you want to do, right?
Yo, this is good. I get it. Get the component. Okay, I get it.
All right, so we get the component. It knows that rigid bodies have a velocity. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go dot velocity. And a velocity has three, it's a vector, right?
So it depends on how fast X, depending on up and down, depending on forward and back.
Exactly, X, Y, and Z.
Our case is X and Y.
X and Z. Y is going to
Oh yeah, you're right. X and Z. You're totally right. Good stuff.
Right now we're going to just move in the X direction. We're just going to get some basic movement. It's trying to autocomplete vector 3.0. What do we think vector 3.0 is?
That's moving nowhere.
Nowhere. Zero movement. So if we hovered over that, if we kind of tabbed to autocomplete and we hovered over it, it'll say 3D vectors and points. But if I go 0, it tells you 0, 0, 0.
Nice.
There's no movement in any direction.
This is good.
Oh, by the way, guys, these semicolons are required. Think of them like periods at the end of your
commas,
sentences.
periods, semicolons. Yeah, there's semicolons, yep.
There's punctuation. We're ending our sentence. We're ending our command.
That's fair.
But we're not going to have zero movement. That's boring. So we are going to include some other movement. And if we're moving in the X direction, if we go back, and you can see the red arrow, and I hit play, what direction is to the right here?
0. The X is going nowhere.
Well, X, right? But it's going to be the positive X direction.
Oh, you're absolutely
right?
correct. Yep.
So again, that way, the where the blue arrow is the positive Z direction. That's the positive Y direction. So I want to move to the right. Well, guess what? I can go vector 3 dot right.
Wow, it doesn't go positive or negative?
And if you hover over right, it says 1 in the X direction, 0 in the Y.
What if I said negative 1? Would that count as left?
Yep, and you can come in and go left.
Positive 1 would be right 1, or just 1?
And you can see negative 1, 0,
Very
0.
good, very good.
Semicolons will. Yes, they will. Josh, are you a comp sci major? I think we talked about this. I forget how many times these guys are comp sci majors.
Nice.
But yeah, and you can even go, watch this, dot up. What do we think the vectors are for that? Well,
Y gang.
Y in the positive direction.
This is awesome.
Down. And
Y down.
Y down, and then you can go
forward. Oh, this is so. Yo, I'm on.
And we're going to use forward and we're going to use right in this.
This literally, once you see someone do it, it's okay. At least the complication isn't here.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like, what am I looking at?
It, right?
Yeah, it's
that's
like
the whole point. Is you
like that is it. I get everything going on. I got the nodes. I get the command, the beginning, user.
So let's go ahead and go right for now. So this is going to be. We're going to save this. Control S. By the way, I want you guys to notice when you're programming things in this, see the little star up here? That's an indicator that you made a change to this file that hasn't been saved. Okay, so just Control S, give that a nice little save.
It's cool as hell. Is that everything?
Yep.
Like Google Docs?
A lot of things. I don't want to say everything, but
this is cool.
Google
Because I know
Docs
like
tends to
Adobe,
autosave.
Sony, Adobe. You're right, because Adobe has that.
Yeah, Google Docs tends to autosave, but like Microsoft Word, I think, does.
Good. This is cool as heck.
And watch this. Unity does the same thing. There's a little star right there, too. Because I haven't saved my scene. So I want to save my Control S, I can save my scene.
That's a little,
These are little things, right?
A little thing.
So we have a little bit of a warning here, and that's fine. But right now, if I hit play, nothing's going to happen. And I want to show this because this is one of the major problems I get with my kids. Is like, oh, I coded this thing and nothing's happening. And one of the first things I look for is I click on player. I don't see a script as a component. Right? We have a rigid body. We have a material. We have a sphere collider. We have all these different things.
Oh, you just added that new component. So you need to add the component.
I need to add the script, right? So there's a couple ways to do this. Simplest way.
Why not add
here.
component?
You can do that way too.
Good, okay.
So there's two different ways. I'm going to do both. We're going to go ahead and click and drag player onto player 1, and boom, it's already there.
Beautiful.
Okay, so that's one way to do it. Let's say I didn't want to do it that way. I can go to these three dots here. We can remove component. I can indeed come in here and add component, and I can call it player. And look at that, player's right here.
And that's your script.
So a couple different ways to add the player script. I tend to be the click and drag onto it mode.
This is good. I'm loving this.
And I'll show maybe a different script later on. There are ways when you try to click and drag it, it'll tell you I can't do that, and there's a few different reasons why that would be the case. So next time when we start adding, like for example, the script onto the main camera, I'll intentionally make some mistakes so we can see some of the common mistakes that some people run into.
Good.
And we can learn how to kind of fix those. So I attached it to the player. Now it tells the player to move, okay? And you can see it's moving. Gravity's kind of affecting. What I don't like is...
the consistent falling down.
It's a consistent falling down, but what we're doing, what's happening is every frame, we're telling it, again, it's 1, 0, 0. So every frame, it's kind of going between, do I want my y velocity to be 0, or do I want to let gravity take effect? So this isn't necessarily the best way to do it. We will be doing it this way because we're going to be turning off gravity during game. But so we can kind of go ahead and do that. I'm going to not necessarily worry about gravity right now. We're going to move this back down. We're going to turn gravity off. Okay? And that way we're not going to worry about that.
It's just going to float.
It's going to float. It's probably a little too high. I can probably lower it a little bit more. But it's a little slow. Why is it slow?
You know, y'all play video games. Y'all like, I didn't even get touched.
Oh, yeah. So when it comes to hitboxes?
You're like, what?
We will look at hitboxes for sure. All right. So it's slow. Why is it slow? Well,
Not one.
We didn't apply the speed to it.
You're right.
It's going at 1 meter per second, right? So what we can do now is just multiply. This little star is your mathematical multiply, and we're going to multiply that by the speed.
And that's going to be the 5.
And that's that 5. Now, and we're going to finish this off with showing how we can change this in Unity. I'm going to go ahead and save it. If we don't save it, it's not going to work. We're going to go ahead and play, and it's got more speed. It's going. For the most part, 5 is a pretty good starting point. Again, if you want to make things more difficult, we'll find a way to programmatically increase the speed over time. But the last thing we're going to cover today is, well, I don't want to have to keep going into the script and changing the 5 if I'm trying to find the right speed. I don't want to have to keep going into the script and doing that.
So what are you suggesting?
That seems tedious.
Okay.
So I'm going to include a thing here called a public modifier in front of the float. And public does a few things, and I'm actually going to change this in a future thing, in a future video. But for now, this is fine. This makes this variable available to everybody. So anybody can go in and change the player's speed. We may not necessarily want that, but for now, when we're kind of working on this thing together, we may just want to have it easily available to us to kind of change whenever we want to. Again, we're going to probably clamp down its availability later on.
So some kid don't put 1 million speed.
Yeah, or change the probability of the cubes to 100%, right? So we're going to make that a public, and what I want you to see now is on this script, what do we have here?
Our speed options.
We have a speed option now.
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
So now I can come into here. I don't even have to go back into my scripts. I can come in here. I can make this 10. I don't necessarily need to save the scene, but I will. And you can see it's hauling ass.
Do 20.
Yeah, we can do 20. We can do it. And what's kind of cool is you see how the mouse cursor kind of changes a little bit. It has those arrows.
Yep.
We can do something like this.
Yeah.
And then. We have some basic movement, guys. That's kind of neat. I'm going to set that back to 5. And that will be our introduction for the day. I think that's a pretty good spot to land on. We got some more stuff we got to do. We're going to eventually put in some user-controlled movement. So the user can change direction based on when he clicks. And maybe some camera follow next time. But I think this is a good spot to land on.
What about, maybe next a jump? So left, right, can we do space to be a jump?
Jump? That could be an additional.
You could do stuff like that too, right?
Like a
oh my God, this is broken.
So we could do something like that. So a cool version 2 feature.
We gotta make a VG app,
right? Because the one that we showed at the beginning of the video literally was a flat plane, right? You just kind of did the click X. But what if we added a feature that the platform as you go raises 3 feet? Well, then now you got to have the ball to jump. So now the space bar, he can jump onto the next platform.
Now, do Unity also create rhythm games?
You can, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I would have to look into how to match up.
Your brain going fast right now.
How a song, for example, and you have the rhythm in the song, how to match that with, how to match that with the actual rhythm of a game, right? So the actual movements you do in the game, matching it up with a song. There may be some code behind that somebody's already made for that. But yeah, pretty much anything you can think of is possible. You just got to kind of look it up, see what people have done in the past, and kind of put in the effort there. But yeah, let's let people come back, and we'll try to get some last-minute questions here. Sorry, guys, as you kind of refresh and come back in. We'll take this time for some Q&A based on what you saw. Anything that you would like to ask?
Internet's so done. They probably think we keep leaving.
No, it's an OBS issue, I think, at this point. I think we just got to reset
something.
Reset something. Maybe look at the settings. But yeah, we can definitely kind of brainstorm and put together some nice little additional ways to get this done. Let me go and put it on the commentators. Like he was suggesting, have the ball jump. Maybe we can get some guess got kicked this time. Yeah.
I also asked him about rhythm games too, because I was just thinking, right? Even just that space bar, clicking it, timing it right, having maybe a song or an audio play, different things like that. Can you script stuff like that?
So you can script, like for example, when you collect a diamond, right, or little objects, you can make that make a little noise.
Every time. Ding.
Yep, every time. You can have music in the background. That's something we can additionally add. What else can we do? I like the jump idea. I like power up ideas.
Yep. So jump, power up, level, levitation. So up and down levels.
Oh yeah.
I'm having a ball bounce on another level right before a turn. Just different things like that. Like,
being able to go down, being able to go up. Maybe have like a 5% chance to change Y directions, right? So you can change either up or down, right? Maybe like I'm thinking of like the runners that you see, like the jetpack joyrides, the temple runs where like they have the magnet power up. That's a temporary, like, all the diamonds in the area, I can't miss them. They're just going to come in. I'm going to get my score. And maybe some other obstacles that you have to go through. We can look into generating some obstacles like swinging arms.
Yep.
If you run into a swinging arm, it may hit you off the platform.
And what about last one, like 2-player games? If I was to have 2 balls, one of them A would be controlling one direction and F would be controlling the other ball. Have 2 players, is that a thing?
So a 2-player game, when it comes to that, as long as they're kind of controlled by the same keyboard, that's definitely possible, right? There's even a possibility to have multiple controllers control multiple characters. What's a little bit more higher level, and again, we've talked about Among Us being a multiplayer game, but that's an online multiplayer game.
That's crazy.
That is very complex. So if you do want to design something that is online based like that, they do have some built-in things, but that is an advanced tutorial to be sure. I tried to at one point have a turn-based baseball game. I don't know if Tubbsy remembers this, but it wasn't necessarily synchronous. We call it an asynchronous multiplayer game, where you guys have experienced this with games like Wordle, Games like 8-Ball, where someone goes in and they play their turn on 8-Ball, and then they send their turn to their opponent, and then they do their turn on their own time. That's an asynchronous game. So we were trying to do one with like a baseball thing where I'd play my top half of the inning. The defender has some power-ups and stuff that kind of automatically go to help them get outs, but they don't necessarily play defense. They just have
the offensive and depending on how it goes.
So then the offensive player does their half inning. Once they get their 3 outs, they send their half inning to their opponent, and then they do their half.
That sounds really fun.
So that was an idea that we had, and it was based on a game that was a very simple one that we had found called was it Stopwatch Baseball? You should make it do a barrel roll as well. Dude, okay.
A spear?
Let's put some little wings on our spear and like we can show it a barrel roll. But I don't know if you remember that one, Tubbsy, the Stopwatch Baseball, where basically you would run a stopwatch and you'd have to try to stop the stopwatch as close as you could to 1 second as possible.
Nice.
And it came to 2 decimal places. And if you were within a certain distance from the 1 second mark, you either had a single, double, triple. If you hit exactly 1, it was a home run.
Nice. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But again, you can get really good at that, and then you can score 20 runs in an inning. So we're trying to find ways to kind of have some randomness in there to kind of make it not so overpowered and things like that. But that was definitely an idea.
Some Barry Bonds out here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we could definitely get some more ideas for this. Once we get our version 1.0, we can get our HUD and maybe get some.
I mean, the last time I heard about 1.0, you said don't get 1.0s. They may be buggy. So
exactly, it's going to be a buggy
game.
Right,
you said it.
That's why you got to get some user feedback. You got to have somebody that has no idea how the game was designed play the game, because they're going to try to find ways to break the game that you may not have thought of. And again, that's all part of the user test process and things like that. But I think it's a great start. Great start.
This is awesome. But yes, guys, let's do it. We're actually going to keep on doing this. Try and do it weekly. The cool thing about this is every little movement we do until the point where we actually start doing mini games, so we can have our kids, have you guys, just test it out. And then every time we just increase a new challenge, right? So we learn something new, increase something new, then have you guys test it out and just keep on honing at it. So it'll be cool. Nice little fun projects. Very awesome to go ahead and go back and look at how to do things, go in depthly, go check it out yourselves, go look at it on my page, his page, on the Instagram page. And yeah, keep it going. Get more people to show people stuff.
We will be posting this. Not only will it be a VOD on our Twitch, it'll be on our YouTube as well. So you can go ahead and follow along with the tutorial. If you weren't able to follow along today, it might be a good way to do so. I'm going to find a way to make this publicly available, the code that we have here as well. So if you wanted to download it and do some testing, you could do so. Probably something like GitHub or Bitbucket. I will let you guys know at a later date once we can get this uploaded. So you guys can play it, week by week. I'll update it every week, and you guys can see. Maybe kind of mess with it on your own. So that'd be kind of fun. I think we're going to sign off here.
Let's do it, guys.
But don't forget to follow us on you see the socials right there underneath. Anyone that you can get on, please do so. Instagram is our biggest one. Follow us on our YouTube for these videos. You got VG Darvis doing his stuff on Twitch and Twitter, his Instagram as well. What have you been playing lately?
Man, Street Fighter. We were going to get into Diamond, so we just hit Plat 1. We got to get Plat 5 before we hit Diamond, and it is just... We basically just playing against spammers. Like, we got to play the mind game. There's no... Yeah, you just got to play the mind game, Ryu King game, all day, Ryu King game, Ryu King game, Ryu King game, Ryu King game, Ryu King game. Literally, Hadouken. All day Hadouken. Or, oh my God, Guile. Perfect. Like, these are just all like, perfect. I'm like, bro.
Like, oh gosh.
Like, I play a fairly heavy character, so like, if I hit you twice, you're gonna delete it. But the possibilities of me hitting you in neutral game is very hard. But it's rewarding, so I'm just doing a lot of blocking, trying to get some counters, some reads.
Oh, for sure. Well, what's your stream time? What's your schedule? So
every night I try and stream around like 7 p.m. on. If we don't stream at 7 p.m., it's like 9 p.m. on. So night streamer usually.
So there you go, night stream VG Darvis with some Street Fighter. You catch me on Reflexion stream every once in a while playing some Diablo right now. And then, of course, Tubbsy streams with us. He tries to daily. He usually does his MLB. Maybe some what's the other baseball game that you play? The silly one where you can like basically kill the pitcher with a stone compactor.
Big heads. You remember the big head was?
Yeah.
The Backyardians? You remember that?
Backyard
You remember the
baseball.
Backyardigans? There you go, Backyardigan baseball. Oh my god, why was that so goodly fun for some
Backyard
reason?
baseball was so good.
It was so good. I swear it was. There's no way.
We might have to bring that back soon, but for sure we're gonna go ahead and sign this off. We got some videos to edit now, but catch us later on. I believe at 2 p.m. we might get some Tubbsy stream once we get this thing fixed somehow, and yeah, we'll see you guys then. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you next time.
Deuces.